piping hot soup to popular icons, from high-tech to high concept.
Sorry, Charlie.
Cans are a mainstay of our explorers and of our wars. Cans help determine history.
There's no denying it. Americans depend on canned food. Though it's now in every American pantry, the can's history is a tale of intrigue, danger, and technology to the rescue. It's the food we take to war, into a bunker.
First you duck, and then you cover.
And to the moon. It's our first convenience food on American Eats Canned Food. With tin gleaming and aluminum glistening, cans are modern metallurgic marvels, preserving food longer, faster, and tastier than anyone could ever have imagined.
There are examples of canned foods that have been uncovered in the Arctic that are over 200 years old, that have been opened and examined, and they are still good.
From the Jolly Green Giant to the perfect bowl of chicken soup,
Campbell's. Good.
Canned food is integral to American life, and yet it gets little respect.
Really, the can is misunderstood and certainly does not deserve this misperception. Americans think it's full of preservatives, but for a fact, cans do have the highest nutritional value, and the can is probably the most convenient container in the marketplace.
Today, that convenient container is the product of a highly automated system of mass production. The Ball Corporation is one of the leading can manufacturers in the U.S. At their Springdale, Arkansas plant, cans barrel down the assembly line up to 2,000 cans every minute. Over 50 billion cans each year. That's more than 8 cans for every person on the planet. Here, it's all about the heavy metal. 45,000-pound coils are fed through an uncoiler, which straightens the steel. It then enters the shearing area to be cut into squares by the dicept. The dicept shears the plates into straight cut or stroll cut pieces. The sheets are now ready to be coated. The coater rolls apply a thin film of protective material to what will ultimately be the inside of the can. They are then transferred one sheet at a time into the coating oven, which cures the coating by passing hot air over the individual sheets. Once dried, the coated sheets are welded into a cylindrical shape and both openings flanged. The bodies are then fed up a magnetic elevator to the roto feeder. Here, the ends of the cans are attached in 2 steps. The seaming roll curls and locks the edges of the end of the flanged body of the can. The seam is then tightened. Once they've been tested for leaks, the cans are stacked in layers. They are now ready for distribution. Today, companies like the Ball Corporation supply the cans that fuel the canned food industry. But the earliest cans have nothing to do with industry at all.
Cans are underappreciated by the American consumer. It's in everyone's cupboard, but no one really takes the time to look at the can and understand its importance from a historical and cultural standpoint.
From this narrow trench, they fought off snipers, fed the wounded, and tried to patch them up since they had no medic.
Without the can, wars would have been fought differently, explorers would not be able to explore as much. So in a way, cans made history possible.
The history of canned food's possibility begins in the late 1700s with Napoleon.
Our greatest enemy is not England or Austria or Italy. It is scurvy. An army marches on its stomach.
So he looked for a way to fill those stomachs faster.
There must be some way to preserve fresh food on the march.
Prior to Napoleon Bonaparte, armies would move into a given location and would forage for their food, which normally meant going to local farms and stealing all the food that they had. Napoleon tried to figure out a good system of feeding an army so that they were not dependent upon local food sources.
In 1795, Napoleon Bonaparte's government offered 12,000 francs to the man who could find a way to feed his army. Enter a 46-year-old confectioner named Nicolas Appert. His idea was very French. Cook the food inside a champagne bottle.
He discovered that rather than heating the food to begin with and then putting the hot food into the glass container, you could also do this by putting the raw food into the glass container, using a water bath, heat the container in its entirety for 6 or 7 hours, and at the end of that then do the sealing at the top, and that preserved the food in a much better way than had previously been discovered.
A pair didn't know it was the heat of the water bath that was killing the germs. He only knew his method worked.
He submitted this to Napoleon Bonaparte, and he was the one who was awarded the prize for his way of preserving food. The British took a look at this and said, glass is nice, but glass breaks. So rather than use glass, why don't we use tin?
Jeremy, can you make a tin canister? A what, sir? Like this tea canister, only of tin metal.
Consequently, tin was a very inexpensive product that they could begin to use as now what we think of as a can.
By 1810, some tinsmiths began developing individual canning techniques.
Early canners made cans by hand, and a good canner would simply take a large sheet of tin, would cut up the sides on it, would solder the sides, solder the bottom in, and then they would put the food inside the can, and then they would put a lid over the top.
Within a decade, canners were bringing their technology to a new market, America.
Most likely, William Underwood was the first British canner to come to the United States and began canning foods in 1819 in Boston. A number of others saw what he was doing and said that's really great.
These early cans were used mostly by the military and aboard ships. It would take several innovations before the can was accepted by the general public. First, someone needed to find a way to make opening a can easier.
They were too heavy, and they were also very large. And it was very difficult to open it. Some of these early cans had a little label on the side, take chisel and hammer to top.
But that would change with the invention of the can opener.
The can opener wasn't invented until 1865. 50 years after the can was invented, a peculiar turn of events. The can opener really only became possible after people found out ways of making tin-plated steel cans, which could be thinner, and therefore you could make a can opener that would go easily through the metal.
The next obstacle in the way of consumer acceptance was the taste.
It's hard to imagine what it might have tasted like. Some of this food was cooked for so long, maybe 6-7 hours in a water bath, that it would change the taste of the food, and it had an off-putting taste, a sour taste.
That would all change in the 1860s when sodium chloride was added to the water bath, raising the boiling point of the water and reducing the cooking time drastically. As a result, canned food no longer tasted overcooked, but fresh. But even though the food tasted better and the cans were easier to open, the real catalyst for canned food's popularity was the era's most cataclysmic event, the Civil War.
The American Civil War comes along, and all of a sudden the Union Army's got a problem. How do you feed the military and the Navy for literally over thousands of miles?
Canned food was the answer.
It was one of the technologies that the North had that the South lacked.
During the Civil War, tinsmiths turned out as many as 35,000 cans a day.
Probably the two most popular ones with soldiers was canned meats and condensed milk, an item that was made popular in this country by Gail Borden.
Gail Borden used a vacuum tube for extracting water from the milk.
Patented in 1856, Borden's Eagle brand canned condensed milk was a success in New York City, where fresh milk was difficult to get. But the war took it to another level.
Condensed milk was one of the products that established the concept of eating canned goods in this country.
And condensed milk was just one of the many canned foods to benefit from the Civil War.
After the American Civil War, the canning industry started to expand. We had a base of consumers who now appreciated this food. Industry had the capability. New technology was coming along to make it safer and better tasting. This was just the right period for the introduction of canned food into the American economy.
Before the war, about 5 million cans of food were produced a year. By 1870, production had grown to 30 million. People rushed into the canning business, opening an estimated 100 canneries in the 5 years following the war. One man, to try his luck, would put his name to what would become one of America's most popular canned foods.
Joseph Campbell, along with Abraham Anderson, started what was then Anderson and Campbell's, a preserve company, in 1869 here in Camden, New Jersey.
Campbell later bought the business and partnered with the wealthy Pennsylvania investor Arthur Dorrance. When Campbell retired at the age of 76, the company was known mainly for its preserves. But just a few years later, Dorrance's nephew John would come on board and take the company in a whole new direction.
John T. Dorrance, who was a recent graduate of MIT, he was a chemist, but he also had a great appreciation for food science and just the culinary art of food.
John Dorrance wanted to introduce Americans to a product that was relatively unknown in the U.S., canned soup. But to do it, he had to accept the $7.50 a week his uncle offered, a salary significantly lower than what other chemists would have made at the time.
Even John Dorrance said that that seemed like a fairly paltry amount of money to be paid. However, he took the job and then quickly put his imprint on the company by inventing condensed soup.
While other condensed products, like milk, required a chemical extraction of water, Dorrance believed condensed soup just required less water and an extremely flavorful stock that would stand up to dilution. And in 1897, Campbell's released 5 soups.
They were tomato, chicken, consomme, oxtail, and vegetable.
The stock made the soups flavorful, but the real breakthrough was the cost.
Condensed soup meant that you could put it into a much smaller tin can, and so consequently your actual expenses for materials would be much less.
You were able to purchase a can of condensed soup for 10 cents. That was 1/3 the cost of the comparable ready-to-serve can of soup that had been available previously.
By 1904, Campbell's had $900,000 in total sales, of which 83% was in condensed soup. Eventually, John Dorrance got a raise, not to mention 5% of the soup profits.
And ultimately, he did very well here. He became the president and owner of the company, and his descendants still control about 50% of the shares of the Campbell Soup Company.
Is somebody making Campbell's chicken noodle?
Yep, and it's all for you.
Still today, the Campbell's brand is the best-selling soup on the market. And to keep up with demand, Campbell's soup factories nationwide produce about 240,000 cans of chicken noodle soup a day in a fully automated process that begins with the chicken.
We dump the chicken meat and a flour solution into the ribbon mixer, mix it all up, and then it's pumped directly over to the filler where we fill it into the can.
After the chicken comes the noodle.
We take flour and egg whites and mix them together and then extrude them out this head and make the dough.
The noodles are made with scientific accuracy. Each strip is precisely cut and exactly 216 noodles go into each can.
Then they get the broth put in them. That's the chicken stock, the herbs and spices, if you will, and the brine. They go in the closer. The closer actually puts the end of the can and seals it up.
Once sealed, the can goes through a cooker which runs overhead. It takes about 30 minutes to cook and sterilize the soup, giving it a shelf life of up to 2 years. While Campbell's was a pioneer in the food canning business, they weren't alone. Some fly-by-night canning companies would come and go. Others would transform the industry. Coming up, one man's determination to make the food fit the can would lead to a groundbreaking innovation. Campbell's uses 44 billion stars a year in its chicken and stars soup. Tomato season in Northwest Ohio. From mid-August through early October, companies like Herzl Canning bring out the big machines, harvesting more than 5 million pounds of tomatoes a day. Delivered to the processing plant in 24-ton trucks, the tomatoes are washed, peeled, sliced, canned, cooked, and cooled, all to the tune of 90,000 tons of tomatoes a year. When Herzl started out in the 1920s, they were just one of hundreds of companies taking advantage of America's growing passion for canned foods.
During the first part of the 20th century, we saw an explosion in the number of companies that were canning food. There was increasing American population. The popularity of canned food was increasing, its acceptability, and companies were cashing in on this opportunity and producing whatever the consumer wanted to buy.
By the turn of the century, the American consumer was just beginning to see how canned foods would revolutionize their diet.
Prior to the mainstreaming of canning, Americans ate on a seasonality basis. You would only eat tomatoes during tomato season. You would only eat fruits and vegetables when they would be available in the local market. Canning makes it possible for you to consume those foods throughout the year. And so therefore, seasonality of American food ends with the beginning of canning.
A pea picked in June could now be canned and sold in January. This led to a whole new world of opportunity for smart growers who wanted to expand their businesses. One of the most successful was James Dawson.
In 1875, James Dawson formed the California Fruit Packing Company. And he looked around at the other fruit packers and said, we have a lot in common. Let's form a cooperative. And in 1886, they formed CalPack, which began to supply a number of different grocery stores and a number of different hotels in Northern California. One of the hotels happened to be the Del Monte Hotel in Monterey, California.
Consumers associated the Del Monte Hotel with quality, so by 1899, CalPack decided to market their other products, everything from apricots to tomatoes to green beans, under the name Del Monte. While Del Monte and many other canning companies marketed foods already familiar to Americans, others saw this as an opportunity to introduce more exotic fare, like the pineapple.
It was a long voyage from Hawaii. We think it's so common now that distribution is so easy, but when it was 7 or 8 days of voyaging to the U.S. mainland from Hawaii in a non-refrigerated container, the fruit just still could not maintain that kind of rigor and then be distributed in the United States.
But one man was determined to deliver the sweet-tasting pineapple to the masses. His name, James Dole.
He was a lot of things all wrapped up into one. Inventor, farmer, marketing guru, super salesman. He was quite a guy.
His father was the cousin of Sanford Dole, who in 1894 became president of the Republic of Hawaii. And after completing agricultural school at Harvard University, James Dole set his sights on Hawaii.
Hawaii was exotic. He was a young man. A lot of people moved to Hawaii at that time for opportunity as a general westward movement.
By 1900, Hawaii had been officially annexed to the United States as a territory, which meant growers on the islands would no longer face tariffs or import fees when shipping produce to the mainland U.S. Dole bought a 61-acre tract of land on the island of Oahu, and to get the company off the ground, he partnered with California-based canner Joseph Hunt.
Hunt's Foods was already well established in the canning industry at that time in California and elsewhere. And Hunt bought stock in his company, and they actually owned about over 70% of it at one point.
Capital secured, Dole built a cannery next to his pineapple fields and began shipping his fruit to mainland consumers who had no idea what it was.
It wasn't like they'd seen a whole bunch of fresh pineapple that they grew in their gardens and so on. So they had to be taught that it was a fruit, how to eat it, what to use it with.
As appetites for the exotic fruit increased, Dole faced another problem, keeping up with demand. To speed up the processing, Dole turned to a 36-year-old company engineer named Henry Janaka.
Henry Janaka is one of those great individuals in a company. He developed a machine that we all named after him, the Janaka machine. We could do 30, 35 coring, peeling, slicing in a minute. So it just revolutionized the ability to do mass production with the pineapple.
The Janaka machine, still in use today, was patented in 1912. It was designed to push the pineapple over a solid steel cylinder, coring the fruit and removing the shell at a rate of 35 a minute. But the automation left a lot of the fruit behind, so Dole worked on growing a pineapple that would better fit the machine.
The more round it would get, the easier it could go through the Janaka, and the cleaner the cut, and therefore would maximize the amount of pineapple that you could get.
The pineapple he created, the Cayenne, is still the only variety used by Dole today.
I'm going to cut this pineapple. We know it has a nice color on the outside. We're also looking for a very nice color on the inside. We're looking for a nice fill of juice in the pockets of the flesh of the fruit. So this is a nice ripe pineapple ready for market.
Getting the perfect pineapple for canning requires an experienced picker with a keen eye.
Each time we come through, we're picking up the fruit that has colored to the proper ripeness, and that is based on the sugar content of the fruit, and the sugar content does not increase. It's absolutely important to get it right. We don't have any second chance on harvesting.
The pineapples are transported the half-mile back to the processing center. There, the trucks lower the fruit into an 80,000-gallon water bath, gently, so as to avoid bruising the fruit. The water washes off the field dirt, but also serves to separate ripe pineapples from those that may have been picked too soon. Ripe pineapples float, while the not-so-ripe sink. Those rejected pineapples are turned into juice or fresh-cut pineapple. And the ripe continue to processing in the Janaka machine.
They're selecting a pineapple and feeding into the machine one by one. So we'll roll into this conveyor that takes the single pineapple into the machine. The machine can only handle one pineapple at a time. So physically, you have to separate them.
Today, only fresh pineapple is processed in Hawaii, where the company farms 3,000 acres. Pineapples for their canning operation are farmed in Southeast Asia and South America. After coring, the fruit is hand-sorted to eliminate broken pieces that are then used as chunks or tidbits. Several pineapples are used to make 1 can of slices. The canned fruit is heated to over 200 degrees for 7 to 12 minutes. Since pineapple is a high-acid fruit, it requires less time and heat to sterilize the can and contents than a low-acid item like meat.
We try and use the entire pineapple itself. The top is used for cattle feed in many cases. And then we take the skins that come out of the Janaka machine and we crush them down and we make concentrate for pineapple juice out of that. So we use basically the entire pineapple for fruit, juice, or feed.
A 4-pound tin of roasted veal dating back to 1824 was opened 114 years later. Researchers tested its viability by feeding the veal to a group of rats. None suffered any ill effects. Today, the canning industry in the U.S. is a diverse business. There are modest processing operations that can everything from tomatoes to sauerkraut. And then there are the super factories like Chef Boyardee's Pennsylvania plant. This state-of-the-art facility cranks out 40 million raviolis a day. Sheets of meat ravioli are cut into bite-sized pieces before being canned. The cans then go down the line for labeling and distribution. The canning machinery production line averages 750 cans per minute and approximately 3 million cans per day. Whether you're a giant or a little guy, all canning businesses owe a debt to the technology of mass production, which gained momentum in the 1930s.
Manufacturing expanded significantly during the 30s and 40s as American industry became more efficient and productive.
Minute by minute, production was winning the battle against wasted time and wasted effort.
By the 1930s, technology was bringing convenience to the American household.
They're great believers in doing things the easy way and depend on modern, efficient equipment.
Wonder Bread introduced a pre-sliced loaf in 1930, using an automatic slicer that cut loaves much faster than the previous manual method.
Slice. Slice. Slice.
In 1937, the Kraft Dinner, a ready-to-make macaroni and cheese mix, hit the market using a newly created powdered cheese. But it was the can that really excited the American housewife.
And when you think about it, the foods that were in the can were already washed, chopped, cooked for them, so all they needed to do was open the can and heat it up and serve it to their family.
The use of canned food by housewives to provide extra vegetables for their children at the dinner table was a sign that the family was moving up socially, economically, and that there was a bright future for them.
In many cases, cans were providing more than extra vegetables. They were starting to offer entire meals. And one of the most popular, pasta in a can, would be brought to us by a man who became such an icon that many people think it's an actor on the can.
People don't believe that my uncle was a real person. And he was a lovable person, a very lovable person.
Hector Boiardi came to America in 1915 at the age of 17 from his home near Milan, Italy. He became a chef and in 1927 moved to Parma, Ohio to fulfill a dream, opening his own restaurant, which he named Giardino d'Italia.
And of course, they served pasta. And they always told me, darn good pasta.
Patrons especially loved his pasta with tomato sauce, with an American addition: meatballs.
Throughout most of the 20th century, Americans believed that every meal had to have meat. And so meatballs were one of the things that were added that created food that you could consume, and it would be a complete meal.
With or without meatballs, Hector's pasta developed quite a following.
Once in a while, somebody would come in and say, Hector, you know, I can't make it here this week. Can I take a little pasta or some sauce home with me? And he says, sure, go ahead, you know. So they did, and that started a trend.
A frequent customer suggested Hector start packaging his meals.
Well, he said, you know, I can make a package up. I'll take a photograph of you and see what happens. And they made it up, and they call it a dinner for three.
Wonderful.
It was the beginning of Chef Boiardi, the dinner for three. In it, it had the sauce, the dry spaghetti, and grated cheese.
In 1938, Boiardi moved his family to Milton, Pennsylvania, where he could produce canned versions of his dishes at an inexpensive factory and use produce from nearby farms. Hector was the first to introduce canned spaghetti to the American public, who were also introduced to the chef himself on the label.
My Uncle Hector used to say this: I make good food, and I want everybody to know who's making it. And that's why he put his picture on the can.
But he didn't put his name on the can, at least not the way he really spelled it.
Uncle Hector wanted to make sure that people pronounced his name properly. So he had it hyphenated to B-O-Y-A-R-D-E-E.
By 1941, Chef Boiardi products were national, but they were about to go international. Carried in the ration packs of American soldiers shipping overseas. So important were Chef Boiardi's products that he would be awarded the Medal of Honor for his contribution to the war effort. Boiardi was the largest supplier of rations in World War II, but he wasn't the only one. Campbell's and Heinz also had contracts with the U.S. military to send supplies overseas.
In World War II, every single American GI went out to battle with a can opener hanging around his neck. It was that important that was how the primary nutrition was provided.
On the home front, though, cans were in short supply and virtually disappeared due to rationing.
You really didn't have much can during World War II because the metal was rationed, and so therefore you really you had all the canned goods that you could make were given to the military.
When the soldiers came home, they were looking for the same canned foods they were eating on the battlefield.
Most of the companies produce a large number of cookbooklets to help people say you don't have to eat it just as it comes out of a can. You could add things to it and make it your own.
And as America entered the Cold War, canned food became an especially important tool.
We must be ready every day, all the time, if the atomic bomb explodes. Duck and cover.
I remember going into my school basement, seeing large quantities of civil defense food in case of a nuclear attack.
Fallout shelters, certainly in the 1950s when there was concern with nuclear war, did contain canned goods. I mean, one of the things you could put into the fallout shelters were canned goods.
In 1995, the FDA officially banned the use of lead solder in the manufacturing of food cans. By the mid-20th century, canned food was part of the American way of life.
Tastes good.
Canned food packed our pantries, adorned our tables, and decked our supermarket aisles.
During the 1950s, this was the heyday of the canned food industry. It had a lot of positive images, high nutrition, and it was in demand.
In the mid-50s, cans maybe accounted for a third or so of what's in the supermarket. Today, they might account for under a tenth of what's in the supermarket.
This was a period of high income, and people now could get in their automobile, drive out to a supermarket, and load up with canned foods. Also, this was a great period in American food advertising.
Look here, a hefty soup for hearty appetite.
Like all advertising, canned food ads had to grab the buyer's attention and distinguish itself from its competition, which by the late 1950s included frozen food and fresh produce. But canned food advertising had a very singular obstacle to overcome: the can itself.
The problem with canned goods, you don't have any idea what's inside the can until you open it up.
We're the Campbell Kids.
To combat the can, advertising focused heavily on the brand, making it fun, relatable, and memorable by creating characters to personify the product.
These characters mean something. They mean something about the brand, and they mean something about our childhoods. Advertising is a lot about a sense of humor and appealing to the consumer in that sort of way people can relate to.
Canned food icons have been around since the Campbell's Soup Kids debuted in 1904. The wholesome Campbell's Kids were meant to exemplify the virtues of the food inside the can.
You know, the nutritious qualities of the soup, the wholesomeness of the soup, the activity of the kids, and how all this comes together around a Campbell's soup product.
Good.
Borden's Elsie the Cow, introduced in the 1930s, was meant to embody the pastoral qualities of condensed milk, while the alluring Chicken of the Sea Mermaid, who first appeared in 1952, symbolized the high quality of the fish, according to the company.
What's the best tuna? Chicken of the sea.
But one of canned food's most iconic characters took a while for his virtues to match the product he was selling.
In the 1920s, the Minnesota Valley Canning Company had created a new kind of pea that they found was especially large and yet still tender and sweet. And so they thought that to market this pea, they would call it the Green Giant.
To advertise the new pea, the company's general manager, Ward Cosgrove, came up with the idea of putting a giant on the can.
But the giant he created was not green.
They didn't know what a giant looked like, so this guy was dressed like a caveman in a bearskin suit with hair that stuck out all over. He was terrible looking.
In 1930, an ad executive named Leo Burnett was assigned to the task. His first idea? A giant makeover.
The pea itself was supposed to be sort of large, but managed to maintain its sweet and tender quality. And so the irony was the icon that created in the 1920s was hardly sweet and tender. He was mean looking. And I think that Leo Burnett realized that if you're going to get to the heart of what this special pea was, then the icon really needed to reflect that. So he straightened him up, and he walked more erect, and he wore a leafy green suit rather than a bearskin.
He was also much happier. The new and improved Jolly Green Giant was introduced in 1936. The Giant became so popular that he was soon selling more than just peas.
Green Giant became so associated with this icon that the Minnesota Valley Canning Company changed its name in 1950 to Green Giant, which is how we know it today.
By the 1950s, Burnett's agency had to translate the successful two-dimensional print ads to the new medium of television, and that job fell to Bob Knoll.
I sat there and stared at the yellow pad of paper and thought, what am I going to do to sell these canned vegetables?
The first efforts were less than promising.
They had a puppet built with a green rubber skin, and he comes up walking up a hill, He looked like something out of The Beast from 50 Fathoms. And the baby cried and the dog went under the sofa. And that was the end of that attempt.
The creative team chose animation instead, setting the giant in a valley where he watched over scores of helpers, and Noel wrote a jingle.
Valley of the Jolly, ho, 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 green giant.
We put them on the air, and it was just a groundswell of affection for that campaign.
The Green Giant was becoming America's favorite produce salesman. At the same time, another legendary canned food character was also being launched by Leo Burnett, now one of the most powerful ad agencies in the country.
Sorry, Charlie.
When Leo Burnett got StarKist as a client in 1958, there wasn't a whole lot to distinguish StarKist tuna from its chief competitor, which was Chicken of the Sea. And Chicken of the Sea was very much in the lead in terms of market share.
What's the best tuna? Chicken of the Sea.
A newly hired copywriter named Tom Rogers was one of the talents assigned to coming up with a way to distinguish StarKist from its sexy seafaring competitor. And in this home movie, made a year before his death in 2005, Rogers talked about that campaign.
And the first assignment they gave me, luckily, was for StarKist tuna. And I started doodling, and I pictured the tuna sitting in a chair, and the guy comes down to interview him and says, "Excuse me, are you a tuna?" "Okay, I'm a tuna. What's on your mind?" "Well, do you tuna resent being caught?" "No, it's our destiny, man. Besides, we want to make the big time. StarKist. It's a status thing." And everybody laughed.
And that's how Charlie got to be born.
I'm showing StarKist what good taste I got.
And within a year, sales for StarKist tuna had increased dramatically.
Look, here they come now. Hey!
Sorry, Charlie.
These characters have stood the test of generations. These characters, which are decades old, have staying power.
Lunchtime.
They resonated with people. They would sing the jingles. They would wait anxiously in front of their 7-inch TV sets for these characters to appear. They became part of Americana.
In speaking to our desire for popularity, comfort, and loving care, canned food advertising created some of our most memorable advertising icons. Canned food has become part of American history. Now, Americans eat about 85 cans of food a year. And according to the Canned Food Alliance, keep an average of 3 cans on hand for emergencies. But what about the can itself? A 1962 Andy Warhol painting of Campbell's Soup sold for $11.7 million in May of 2006. Its original price was about $30. In its 200-plus year history,
Sorry, Charlie.
canned food has come a long way. A military invention designed to feed the troops,
The Army marches on its stomach.
has transformed into perhaps the most prevalent packaging method of today.
Americans purchase about $10 billion worth of canned food annually.
The number and variety of foods that are canned is just limitless.
But in today's canned food world, the limitless varieties are not only about the food, but about the can as well.
There are a number of innovations which we're working on which will make the can more convenient and attractive to consumers. Some of the most recent innovations have to do with the full panel easy open end, where you can take the entire end of the can and pull it off in one motion, which will allow the consumer to pour the contents out very easily without a use of a can opener, which is in the market now. We hope to have in all cans in the near future.
An easier opening top is only the beginning of the can's modernization.
The future is bright. There's microwavable cans for soups and other items. The resealable can, which will allow consumers to use only a portion of the food and then put it back in the refrigerator once a resealable lid is put on.
And then there's technology that goes where no can has gone before. Welcome to the OnTech Delaware Company in San Diego, California. Inside their lab awaits the can's final frontier, a self-heating can, no stovetop required.
Before, the can only held the food. That's all that it did. It held the food and it kept it sterile. Now we're able to provide a way for the can to also heat the food. It's tremendously different than what we've seen in the past.
OnTech spent over 10 years and $30 million developing the self-heating can. While 90% of cans produced today are made out of tin-plated steel, the OnTech can is made from 6 layers of polypropylene plastic, which gives the packaging distinct advantages.
Now, if this were done with a metal, you can only draw or stretch it. So you can't make different shapes, like this shape, or the straight waddy shape. You can only make a straight can like a soda can. So this actually gives us the flexibility to make different designs.
And it's those easily moldable designs that make the self-heating can possible.
The 2 main components of the package are the body and the cone. The body provides the structural rigidity and also the compartment to hold the liquid beverage. The cone then is the inner chamber that holds the chemistry. And because of the physical relationship of the body to the cone, the chemistry is kept separate from the beverage.
The body holds the food or beverage just like any other can. It's the cone that's special. The cone stores a mineral called calcium oxide, also known as quicklime. On top of the cone, sealing in the quicklime, is a cap filled with water known as the puck. The puck is responsible for activating the chemical reaction that heats the can.
So once the calcium oxide is placed into the cone and the puck is placed to captivate it, we close the package by double seaming a metal end onto the plastic flange on the bottom of the package. This closes it so that the chemistry does not come out of the package. The consumer now has no access to the chemistry, so that brings us then to the chemistry. In order for this cone to transfer heat to the beverage, we have to provide a way for the consumer to activate a reaction. And we do that by injection molding a puck. So when the consumer is ready to enjoy the hot beverage, they simply need to activate the puck. It will flex forward. These prongs will penetrate the foil, and then by gravity, the liquid will drain from the puck into the cone.
The combination of the water and the quicklime begins a natural exothermal reaction that heats the contents of the body up.
And that exothermic chemical reaction produces calcium hydroxide, water vapor, and heat. So our reaction is non-toxic, it's not ozone depleting, and it's in no other way environmentally unfriendly.
Although the reaction gets as hot as 210 degrees Fahrenheit, it will only heat the liquid in the body to about 140 degrees, perfect for coffee or soup. Already on the market, the self-heating can is just another chapter in the compelling story of canned food.
More soup than ever.
With over 200 years of innovation,
There's your tin canister, sir.
the canning industry hopes to continue delivering a larger variety of canned foods to the public. It's the food we tend to ignore, belittle, and berate, but in the end, can't live without.
The can is still very much with us. We may think that we're not using canned foods all the time, but most of us are. You look in a supermarket and you'll see 3 or 4 aisles of cans. You probably see more than 1,000 different canned goods in your local supermarket, so they're not gone by any stretch of the imagination.
My cupboard has garbanzo beans, baked beans, tuna fish. I couldn't live without these canned foods. They're not going to disappear. There's always going to be room in the cupboard for canned foods.